Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. On today's episode, we're diving deep into one of the most iconic fire departments in the world, the FDNY. With someone who knows it from the inside out. I'm joined today by Frank Leeb, who recently retired after more than 31 years of service, having held some of the department's most senior roles, including Chief of the Fire Academy, Chief of Training, and Chief of Safety. Frank's not just a veteran firefighter, he's a nationally respected leader, educator, and author whose work has shaped how fire departments across the US and beyond approach training, leadership, and operational excellence. He now serves as a managing director at First Responder Center for Excellence, continuing his mission to push the fire service forward. In our conversation today, we're going to explore the evolution of firefighting, from how training has changed to the complex realities of recruitment and retention, and the critical importance of leadership on and off the fireground. Frank shares his hard-learned lessons from a decision-making under pressure, fostering team culture, and how to transition from being one of the crew to leading the team. We're also going to get into some of the fireground tactics, talk about how the FDNY deploy, and give us a little bit of an understanding from a UK perspective on their operational tactics. We'll be touching mental health, physical fitness, and the challenge of staying in shape in a profession that never stops changing. So whether you're a seasoned firefighter, a new recruit, or someone who has simply always wanted to learn a little bit more about how training and leadership looks in the second largest fire department in the entire world, then this episode is one you're not going to want to miss. So without further ado, please welcome today's guest, Frank Leeb. I'll see you on the other side. What initially drew you to the fire department?
Well, so initially I joined my volunteer department on Long Island, which is just outside of New York City, and that was because my brother, who was 10 years older than me, he was a member. So I was 7 years old when I first started going around the fire department. So then when I was old enough to become a junior firefighter, I joined the same department he was in when I was 14, and then became a senior firefighter when I was 17. And I never wanted to do anything else. I always wanted to be, from when I was 7 years old on, I knew I wanted to be a firefighter.
So what did those sort of initial training school elements look like? Because we're having big conversations about training here in the UK, and obviously your career and the work you then went on to do as lead for training departments and so on and so forth. What did initial training look like when you joined 32 or something years ago?
Well, it was very different because we didn't do all the things that firefighters are expected to do today, right? So the old cliche, we're all hazards organizations, which is true, right? Because the public calls us for everything, whether it's they have a leaky pipe, or grandma fell down, or an electrical emergency, right? There's a shorting outlet, and they don't call an electrician, they call the fire department. And so we're expected to come there and know what we're doing and mitigate any problem.
So when you had those fundamentals that were part of your training school, how have you seen that evolve over the years? Sort of the stuff that you then went on to lead within the training departments that you worked in, how did it change from when you first joined? Because when we look at core skills in the UK as an example, just to unfold the question a little bit, we have elements that we talk about with core skills. So it'll be ropes, ladders, pumps, all that sort of stuff. Then you'll move on to road traffic collisions and BA and hazmats. And then you'll move on to trauma care. And you'll almost do them in a modular element. Sometimes it will take around 8 to 12 weeks in the UK. But there's big conversations around what's included within that training, how much time we don't spend focusing on fire behavior and fundamentals and knowledge and a deep knowledge of structural elements of a building as an example. We don't really cover very little of that anymore. And I'm interested to understand what sort of stuff you were taught when you first joined, and what of that did you think you should continue and which you dropped off? This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the fireground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
When I joined the FDNY, the training was 8 weeks. I joined, I got sworn in October, and I was out in time for New Year's Eve. And
Nice.
that's evolved. When I was the chief of the fire academy and then chief of training, it was 16 to 18 weeks. So that's an additional 10 weeks of training. But there's so much more that is required. There's a lot of required training, whether it's hazmat, plus getting sets and reps in live fire, and all the other different things that we're required to do. So the requirements have actually increased significantly to what is a qualified firefighter on day one, right? So you're qualified, but you're not a seasoned firefighter on day one. Even with the 18 weeks, you're just scratching the surface of giving the firefighter the very, very basics to survive and hopefully thrive with continued mentorship, and people taking you under your wing to make you a better firefighter. But, we talk about that. When I joined, I got a letter from New York State 3 years later saying, congratulations on completing your apprenticeship as a firefighter. And that is really a good way to put it, right? Is that you're not a journeyman right out of the bat, right? You're right out of Proby school. You barely know what you're doing. And that education must continue, even with 18 weeks of school, which now there's also medical training, which is a couple of weeks of that training as well. So physical fitness is a tremendously important part of a new firefighter's career as well. So, and again,
what were the selection requirements? What were the fitness requirements when you joined? Do you remember?
So the fitness requirements, we would do a lot of calisthenics. We'd do some running and we'd do some lightweight work, but that has really evolved into an art nowadays, where they, especially over a 16 or 18 week period, the shape that the firefighters get into while they're in Proby school, especially if they come in ready to go. And so one of the interesting things is that we would assign a new firefighter coming in first day of Proby school. We would assign them a fitness score based on a lot of different factors that our fitness unit would look at. And that was the greatest predictor of pass or fail of Proby school. If you came in woefully out of shape, we knew that there was a line where it was going to be very difficult for this person to pass.
Okay.
So you need to be in shape on day one, because everything's impacted by your physical conditioning. If you're not sleeping enough, if you're not eating properly, like, it's all interrelated. And so that is the number one.
Did that change at all as you were in, perhaps, and I want to be clever about the way I ask this question, the latter years of sort of leading the training academy? Because this is something I think we struggle with, certainly in the UK, as we try to be a lot more inclusive, be a lot more able for different people to access employment with the service, so that we can remove any potential barriers for people. But ultimately, you can tiptoe delicately close to lowering the standard. And that, for me, and again, of course, I would say this, I'm a knuckle dragging firefighter that loves his fitness, but that kind of rests on everything. When we talk about hazards on the fire ground, like your oppo not being in a physical condition to, the first person that needs a break after 10 minutes of hauling over, the person that can only be in a hot wear for 20 minutes, the person that, needs to swap over on the casualty when they've only been dragging for 8 minutes, that's a potential hazard. And I don't want to spend too much time lingering here. I know we're tight on time, but how did it progress? Did the standard change? Did the standard have to, in quotations, adapt?
Yeah, so I would say the standards changed, and they changed to where what we are expecting our new members to do closely mirrors what we expect them to do on the fire ground. Okay. So, we're not having them do things that they're not going to be expected to do on the fire ground. And I think that's important. So that's not necessarily a weakening of the standards, of a changing of the standards. It's just making it where it's a more realistic alignment of the standards to what we expect out of our members, right? Cardio is very important on the fire ground. Obviously, some strength training is important as well. But if you could run 5 miles, I don't know, does running 5 miles really help you on the fire ground? I'm not so sure.
I think you need to be able to do 20 to 30 minutes of hard work, and it's effectively interval training, isn't it? You're going to be working, lifting, moving. You need to be very versatile and flexible. You need to be able to move in lots of different planes of movement and all that sort of jazz. But you don't need to be deadlifting 200 kilos and you don't need to be running 10 miles. It's very interesting when we talk about that tactical athlete and that functional athlete. And also we want to talk about longevity for the role, because, when I joined, I was very, very big, far too big, really, in terms of the bulk that I was carrying. Not necessary at all. Whilst that might lean into the stereotype that some people love about the job, it's perhaps not functionally appropriate. But I also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater when the pendulum swings so far that we're not creating weaknesses within the system.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And for us, we're certainly not. And over the 18 weeks to 16 weeks, depending on which version they're doing, the like you said, the resiliency, the flexibility, all of that, and it's almost it's a lot more similar to CrossFit training than it is to other types of training that it was previously. So I think it's a good metric. I think that the standards today are good. I think they're fair, and we don't have a lot of people washing out strictly because of that. And especially if they come in ready to go.
Talk to me for a second about applicants' numbers. I don't want to spend too much time here, like I say, but I'm just interested. We really struggle with recruitment and retention in the UK. FDNY, I believe, is the biggest fire department in the world. I think. I'm not sure.
Second biggest in the world, largest in the States, second biggest in the world. Yeah,
second biggest in the world. How's recruitment and retention? Towards your latter years, was the conversations around that? Because also just expand, because in the UK we can come in with little to no qualifications, and the fire service gives us everything. So our driving, our medical tickets, our qualifications. In the States, and I know certainly in Canada, you have to have a lot of prerequisite qualifications before you can even apply for the fire department. Am I right in saying that still?
Well, so in New York City, you don't need to have any firefighting qualifications. You take a written exam, and then if you do well on the written exam, you're given the opportunity to do a physical exam, the physical fitness part, and then you're given a list number, and then we'll teach you how to do everything that you need to do, whether it's medical training, firefighter training, all of that. And so recruitment is a problem, I think, globally for the fire service. And the United States is certainly no different. But New York City, what we've seen is a decrease in the number of applicants, but we still have plenty of people applying that want to be FDNY firefighters. Okay. But we must, the FDNY should be vigilant to make sure that we still have a quality applicant pool, because we know that there's other departments that used to have exams and used to have long lists that no longer have that. And so we'd be foolish to not be looking at what's happening elsewhere. So we have.
What do you attribute that to? And this is probably part of a larger question, because even people that join, we've seen careers shortening as well. And just, you did 31 years. Do you think this is still a job for life for people?
Oh, I think it is. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I absolutely love being a firefighter. I love being an FDNY firefighter. I wouldn't trade my career, the career that I had, for anything, for any profession. It doesn't matter. And we need to get that into our new firefighters, that, it is a great job to be on, and it is a great profession. I mean, it's, we are the lucky ones, I like to say, and we really are the lucky ones to be able to serve in such an amazing profession and have such an impact on people on a daily basis. But, it is hard to do 31 years and get out, without suffering too many serious injuries. There's so many different problems, right? There's so many different concerns that you have to navigate as a firefighter, but which is why we have to do better, right, on protecting our people from occupational cancer, PTSD, suicide. I mean, all these
suicide. The suicide and the carcinogens are two of the big. I wrote an article very recently for an international magazine around suicide. I think it's 35 to 50 male firefighters. The biggest risk facing them is themselves. It's not carcinogens. Whilst that is a high risk, we're more at risk than the general public from suicide and self-harm. And there's a lot of mess within that, and hard to hang the hook of that on any one particular thing. But I think it's gotten past the point where we can just ignore the reality. The statistics are suggesting that we really need to, and we say the same really for our colleagues in armed response, in the military, in police, and so I think paramedics in the UK, their careers are even shorter.
Yeah, and we know that it's not just the calls, so that it's poor leadership adds to stress. There's so many different things, financial problems, marital problems. So it's not just the calls. There's a battalion chief in the States, Dina Alley, who's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and she speaks about that it's not just the calls all the time, and how important that it is to look at all of them, to look at all of these different issues, so we can and really reimagine how we look at suicide prevention, engineer solutions that on how we could best protect ourselves, right? Because as you mentioned, our harm is ourselves sometimes, and we worry about carcinogens, which we should, but we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, our bodies, our mind, and she's really amazing in that topic. Should be a good guest for you.
I've made a note for it. Yeah, I'll ask you for some contact. I think that's probably a nice opportunity for us to segue into the first sort of conversation around leadership, because it's something you speak very powerfully and passionately on now. I've seen a number of clips and talks that you've done on the subject. What were some of the first steps that you took into a leadership role?
So when I got promoted in the FDNY to lieutenant, that was my first leadership role. In the FDNY, other than being an informal leader around the firehouse, and there were times where we come offline for 8 weeks for training to become a lieutenant, our first line supervisor training. So we get a lot of leadership training.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents, and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. So what would be encompassed in that? Because we tend to think tactically. So we'll give people their incident command ticket, we'll make them aware of some procedures and policies, the way to manage leave and holiday, and then we kind of let them go for it. And then we wonder why we're having some of the big challenges that we're having with culture and leadership and transparency and professionalism and our ability to handle difficult conversations. What was encompassed, if you can recall? I mean, and whether or not you saw it change as you moved into the academy yourself. What are some of the principles or some of the things that were developed in the leadership courses?
Yeah, so every single rank in the FDNY, you come offline and you do 6, 8 weeks, 2 weeks, depending on the rank. And so some of it is strategy and tactics, but there's an awful lot of leadership training where they'll have other senior leaders come in and give you their nuggets on leadership. And the one amazing thing about the FDNY is we have a deep bench, whether it's people that are brilliant at the basic strategy and tactics, or brilliant leaders that just they know how to lead. And when you think about the people in your career, or even in life in general, that you want to be like, they're usually the people that know what they're doing, so they're competent, but they also understand people skills, how to treat people. And that is like the secret sauce of leadership is understanding empathy, understanding listening, understanding that we need to treat everybody fairly, but not the same, right? So you want to have problems within your team, treat everybody identical, right? I have a son and a daughter. I don't treat them the same. I treat them equally, but I don't treat them the same. There's different leadership styles work for different people.
How do you get to the point where leaders know that they know what they know, if that makes sense? You know, the 4-stage model of competency. You have that unconscious incompetence element. Then you have that conscious incompetence. We know that we don't know what we're doing. Then I imagine we transition into that first leadership role. We go on the 6 or 8 thing, and hopefully we become consciously competent. When you have these leaders come in, you're saying these words that, they know what leadership is, they know what leadership looks like. There's a difference between doing it very well and being able to teach it, isn't there?
Yes, very much so. But so these are people that have been vetted to come in and teach a program, and they'll have a whole outline for what they want to teach, and sometimes it's how to deal with the firefighter that just isn't going to go along with the program, right? Whatever it is. Sometimes it's how to handle all the administrative stuff and how that matters, how to handle conflict resolution with the firefighters, but really how to treat people and talk to them on a daily basis. You could diffuse so many problems if you know how to treat people right. And and to me, it's trust, it's empathy, it's an understanding. Get to really know your people as well as you can, because at the end of the day, we're only as strong as our weakest link. And when we allow members to isolate or not be part of the team, we weaken ourselves where it matters most, and that's on the fireground, on a response. When we can't allow for that, because that bleeds over. The more you know your team, and we think about the companies in the world that are really good, where people want to work for them, they value their people. They have activities that involve their people, because the companies that they understand the benefit to the company. So they, and whether you have a softball team, people say, the company pays for the softball team. Well, that's great, because they're getting much more value out of it than the individuals playing the sport. And so many people.
But that can be. I've got to push back there, because I'm agreeing with you. But for the listeners' benefit, these things are sometimes intangible. It's like when you try and measure culture or you measure engagement. When you measure competence, it's good. Can Frank do the thing or not? Do you know what I mean? Does he pass the fitness test or not? Did he pass the command reaccreditation or not? But these soft skills and that element of psychological safety or trust or authenticity or ability to develop empathy and sympathy with your team, these things are very hard to measure. So I think that's sometimes what, and you made you alluded there to softball team, and we say we get a lot more back from it. I agree with you. How do we measure that though?
So it's hard to measure it and quantify it, but here's what I'll say.
It is.
Firefighting is the greatest team sport that there is. But pick any sport that you want, and you could have an all-star team that doesn't perform as a team, and even though they have the individual players that make them the best team on paper, they lose and they get eliminated in the first round, or they underperform. And that's because they never gelled, they never came together as a team, and it was just a group of individuals. So 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, right, equals eventually 10 people equals 10, but when you operate as a team, it equals 15, it equals 20. So when you see the teams that overachieve, overperform, it's because the sum of their parts equals more than the sum of the individuals. And that is, while we can't quantify it, I see it on the fireground all the time in my high-functioning units that seem to always get the job done. They seem to always find a better way. And so quantifying in actual statistics and numbers may be difficult, but we see it in all different parts of life. Sports seems to be one of the greatest analogies to it, because we see teams that aren't as good perform as a team and do amazing things.
So looking back on, you said you made that first step through to lieutenant. I often think that we can learn as much from people that we don't want to be, as much as we want to be the people that we do want to be. So what were some of those early sort of lessons that you learned? And also maybe a better way to frame the question is, what were some of the leadership examples that you knew you didn't want to be? Like, what's some of the typical examples people get wrong when they're stepping into those first realms of leadership, from that firefighter to lieutenant?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I had when I was a brand new firefighter, first time I walked into the firehouse, I met my captain, and he told me, learn something from everyone. Sometimes you'll learn what not to do. And so that's the leader that tries to paint everybody with the same brush, treat everybody exactly the same. That doesn't work. The leader that talks a game but he talks the talk but doesn't walk the walk. Your members in any profession, people watch what the leader's doing. They listen to what the leader says, but more importantly, they watch what the leader's doing. And if if your actions don't match your words, you're not going to be much of a follower. You're not going to have much of a following. So I think those are the two biggies, and lacking trust, right? If somebody doesn't have trust, but again, I've been around so many amazing leaders in my career that for the longest time I didn't realize that there was a problem with leadership around the fire service, because and I've heard it now from many people as I go around and speak, and they're like, yeah, they tell me your experience is not the norm, where I've had virtually all good leaders.
I would agree.
And I think that's because, like you said, we give them some strategy and tactics classes. We shake their hand and boom, you're a lieutenant, and you have gotten no people skill training. And if you didn't develop it on your own somehow, it's leaving too much of what we do to chance, because it is such an important part. I know so many people who are brilliant at the basics, but when you're working with them, you're like, oh my God, I wonder if this guy took his medication today. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. He's all over the map. One day he's yelling at everybody. The next day he wants to be your friend. And like, I don't even want anything to do with that person. So even though that person is brilliant at the basics, nobody follows them. Nobody even wants to listen to them. And that is such an important, when these people realize it, which the problem is sometimes they never realize it, right? They never realize that they look in the mirror and they don't really see the truth, Well,
I think because when you go on to acknowledge that truth, the thing is, the way that you're damaging relationships in the professional sphere, you're probably replicating those same behaviors in your personal life, because that is just the way that you say you are. And this is, I think, the real challenge with developing leadership skills, or developing soft skills, or interpersonal skills, or emotional intelligence, however people want to word it, is because it can feel like a very personal attack. If I said to you, Frank, you're terrible at pulling line, or you're terrible at whatever it might be, that's a tactical thing. There's a procedure for it. We can take you through the steps. Eventually you'll nail it. But if I say, Frank, you're not very trustworthy. Frank, people don't feel like you listen to them. I don't feel like you have any authenticity. That's a very, very, and not necessarily you give people feedback in that context, but those elements are really the early stages of difficult conversations with leaders in their real infancy, isn't it? Because these things are things that they probably do in their personal life, and you start to question. I certainly did. Am I doing this at home? Does my daughter feel this way? Does my partner feel this way? Am I talking that way around her? And am I making people feel excluded even without even knowing it? It can feel very personal with people, can't it?
Yeah, it certainly can. So
MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture, and supply of incredible, safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high-performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. It's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake.
For most of my career, I have had people who would be honest with me and give me the constructive feedback I need. And I have done that to multiple people as well. And some people, see, how you phrase it really matters, right? How you approach it matters. If you just say, you suck less, probably not going to work out so well. But, when you say, hey, the way you approach people could be improved, and maybe count to 10 and listen to people a little bit more. Take out a notepad and take notes when somebody's speaking to you. It'll slow down your thinking. It'll slow down your response. And then I always tell them, I'm coming from a place of caring and love when I give you this feedback. I'm not trying to tear you down. I'm trying to make you better because I see a lot of potential in you. And
that's a good element, isn't it? Painting someone in the most hopeful and optimistic future state and saying, Frank, I know how committed you are to this job. I know you have some incredible leadership skills, and I can see the potential that lies within you. And I think if we work on these elements, that'll be achievable for you. But you've got to be so careful, haven't you, not to trigger those defensive elements where someone goes, well, who said this, Frank? When have I done that? Who said that?
Yeah.
And then you've triggered that defensiveness, and I suppose people are just shutting down them.
And the majority of people you won't trigger it with, especially when you explain to them that I'm not attacking you. I see the potential. And some people, I've had a couple of people that I saw great potential in them, and I continued to tell them, and then they didn't listen, and I kept seeing their failures, and it bothered me because I'm like, it's such a small adjustment. Because if somebody's so far off the mark, there's people that it doesn't matter what you tell them, they're not going to change, right?
Yeah.
Or they're such a poor leader, whatever, that you may not even be dealing with those people. It's the people that that this person is missing one or two little elements to be an exceptionally good leader that everybody wants to follow. And if you could course correct those people that little bit, my goodness, they're, and I'm grateful that I've had many people, again, that have helped me. And I've helped some people, and, they're usually very thankful for it. And sometimes they're even aware, they have that self-awareness about what they're doing. And it validates what they were thinking. And it also validates and motivates them to make those little changes.
So I want to focus for a little bit longer on this early stages of leadership. And what I mean by that is that firefighter to lieutenant, the firefighter to leading firefighter to crew manager, as we have it in the UK. That's the first step when people can struggle with, I'm part of the team, but I'm no longer solely everybody's mate. So how do you give advice and balance for people that are stuck between that company focused versus organizational, larger strategic focus versus solely team station focus? Like that golden thread should ideally run through all of your actions. But when you are taking that first step, certainly in the UK, it can happen on the same watch at times. So people will go from a firefighter to a crew manager or a leading firefighter on exactly the same watch. And they really struggle to recalibrate that relationship with people.
Yeah, and when you're supervising the people that you just worked with, that's the most difficult part because they're already your friends, which is why in New York City we go to a different area. And I say, when you get promoted to an officer position, whatever position it is, you're going to a firehouse. You're not going there because those firefighters need more friends. You're going there because they need leaders, right? They have all the mates that they're working with. But if you're a good leader, they will become your friend and mates. And I think that's important. So don't worry about being their friend. That comes with you being a competent leader. I'm friends with many of my leaders that I've had. In fact, some of the leaders that I've had are my best friends now. Mm-hmm. But I know that they always cared for me. They cared for my career development. They cared for my safety. They cared for my family. Like it's that whole piece. But when I'm at work, they made sure that they were doing their job to make sure that I knew my job, that I went home at the end of my tour, all those things that matter. They trained with us. They didn't sit in the office all day long and do nothing. They made us better.
So your book, Cornerstones of Leadership, I've actually, when I said we we're going to have you on, we put a little bit of a post out about it. There are quite a large number of people that have actually already read it. So I want, for those people that are unfamiliar with it, obviously we'll provide some links to your website and your LinkedIn and all that sort of jazz. But what are some of those cornerstones? Kind of tease us into elements that we haven't already discussed now. And I know you're out training California at the moment, isn't it? You're doing a leadership course out there.
I'm in Florida.
Florida.
Class
My apologies.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
What are some of those cornerstones that you focus on with people?
Training, teamwork, and mentorship. It's when you look at that, it really is. So training is the heart and soul of every organization. And teamwork and the value of teamwork, as we discussed, how it could be in sports. It's really teamwork is a force multiplier. And when we look at mentorship in the FDNY, mentorship begins on day one. And it continues for the entire career. The second I walked into, I wasn't even working yet. I walked into my firehouse, and the captain on day one is mentoring me, telling me, read something fire related every tour. Make sure that you learn something from everyone you meet. Sometimes you'll learn what not to do. It's ingrained in the very culture, into the DNA of the FDNY firefighter. And at every rank, that just continues. And we're proud when our members, we're happy for them when they get promoted, when they save a life, when they make a grab in a fire. I mean, it's and that teamwork aspect is so ingrained in what we do. In fact, each of those, it's into our DNA, and it's been passed down from generations that came before us. Because really, we stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us in our organizations, right? And you could trace it all the way back to the beginning of your organization. What were the founding fathers, or what did they build the organization on? And that is such a critical component when you look at that and say, would those people that started your organization be proud of what the organization has become? I hope so. I hope you've done it right.
That's the real challenge, because we are in an ever evolving job, and that's probably something I wanted to ask you around the training that gets undertaken today. Like, in terms of the diversity of the role that we sit in, the challenges that our communities are facing, what do we think needs to change about the way that we are training and preparing the next generation of leaders and firefighters?
Well, we have to make sure we're doing a better job on protecting ourselves. Right, and particularly, as we mentioned, what I call the blind side issues of the fire service. We're brilliant at the basics, but we forget about all those other things, which is, as we mentioned, the carcinogens, the PTSD, even hearing loss, right? So hearing loss is a problem for firefighters. But the other thing is we have to make sure that we're evolving as technology evolves. And that is one of the most difficult things for the fire service, because the evolution of technology, the accelerated pace of technology, whether it's energy storage systems, nanotechnology, or simply lithium-ion batteries, or whatever's next, what's over the horizon next that we're not even aware of, driverless cars. So, drones, how we've used drones for good. But as this evolution of technology continues, we have to make sure that we're keeping up with it, because there's times, and when we're talking about these huge warehouse storage where they have 70, 80 feet high rack storage, or we're talking about some of we have a very difficult time putting out a battery fire on a vehicle. In some of these cases, the technology has outpaced our ability to protect it. Yeah. And, so how do we look at what's the next new thing over the horizon? Yeah, how do we adjust to what's coming down the pipe next? And we see this in the evolution of what's burning. And even, a couch made 10 years ago is different than a couch made today, with less wood, more energy density in what's burning, so higher heat release rates, all of this, which is impacting, and we've adjusted our procedures based on that. But we continue to see that evolution, and our ability to keep up with it is, I think, one of the great challenges for the fire service going forward.
I want to be respectful of your time, but I know we spoke about some of the listeners' questions that got sent. Some of these are very, not low level, but some of these are very tactically driven, because we love our discussions on tactics in the UK. So apologies if I'm stretching you back into some of your academy days here. There was a question around pre-assigned tasking. So I know engine crews versus truckies and searching ahead of the line. Talk to me for a little bit around pre-assigned tasking, assuming you're speaking to a brand new recruit. What does that mean to an FDNY firefighter, and what are the sort of steps in terms of pre-assigned tasking? It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighters podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, incident debriefs, and so much more. A growing collection of valuable resources to help you learn and grow. Your support in whatever way, dropping it in the WhatsApp group, sharing it on the local newsletter, whatever it is, it's incredibly valuable and we really do support it. And we need it to make it a long-lasting resource, that legacy resource we always talk about for first responders, firefighters, and everybody everywhere who's ever been interested in joining the fire service. Now, if you're already supporting something, as many people do, it's totally cool. You can still access the podcast for free and you'll always be able to access all the new episodes for free. But we're asking for your help to make this sustainable. And we want to keep growing, we want to keep sharing the insights, and we want to keep showcasing the incredible work happening in our community and our sector. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes.
So when you work in New York City, you will be assigned to read the thousands of pages that we have. And we have policies and procedures on everything and positions for all of the different buildings that we respond to. And we expect you to be in your position and execute your assignment. So individuals are tasked with the assignments for the betterment of the team. It's all part of the team concept. So we know we have somebody going to the rear of a building, somebody going to the roof of the building, somebody going inside. And that will be predicated whether you're first due, where you're the first truck company or first due engine or second due, and where you'll be. And everybody else on the fire ground will know where your position is assigned to. That will change whether the building has a flat roof, whether it has a peaked roof, whether it's a multiple dwelling, a private dwelling, a place of worship, a row frame, a brownstone, a high-rise multiple dwelling, a high-rise office building, a factory. We have procedures for all of those, and you're expected to know your assignment, do your assignment, because if you don't, that's a failure point. And that's when we could potentially wind up having civilian lives lost or firefighter lives lost.
Go into a little bit more detail around firefighters searching without an attack line, because that's a question that a lot of people ask me. And I speak about the principles of anti-ventilation and controlling the ventilation profile of the building. And firefighters they're not inherently putting themselves in adverse risk. They're looking to locate life, locate fire, close it down, and then leave that tasking to the engine crew. But unfold that a little bit more, because I might be getting that wrong. That's just from recent conversations.
So it's all done with, we must coordinate ventilation with suppression. So you can't just vent and not put water on the fire. But in New York City, with our staffing, I can do a lot of things simultaneously instead of sequentially. So if you're showing up with only a couple of firefighters, you're going to have to prioritize. You're going to have the incident priorities and do them in sequential order. I can do everything simultaneously. So on arrival, I have the engine company starting to stretch a hose line, and I have the truck company. They're going to start performing a search. So they may target a bedroom window on the second floor of a private dwelling of a residence. They'll put a ladder up, they'll go in. The first thing they do is get inside, and they're going to make sure that they close that bedroom door to the hallway. Now they just isolated. Now they're able to search. So we call it VEIS, vent, enter, isolate, search.
Yes.
Words matter. What you call it matters. So we changed that terminology many years ago. But it's not just willy-nilly venting and going in and saying, I'm not worried about pulling the fire, because if I don't close that bedroom door, I'm going to pull the fire towards me. Now, there are times where if we know that there's a life in there, we know we may pull the fire towards us, but in the process...
And just to be clear, they do take a small extinguisher media with them, don't they? They do take a small can.
Yeah, so the inside team, the officer is with the can firefighter and the forcible entry firefighter. So he has a can, he has water with him. But the outside positions, they would not have water with them. And they will go in maybe off of a fire escape or off of a ladder, go in, do a targeted search of a bedroom, and then get out. But they are asking permission of the officer as well before they vent, because the inside team may get in there and be in position. And also, we don't want that firefighter to vent at the detriment and injure the firefighters that are operating inside the apartment.
Yeah, especially in FDNY where you've got a lot of tall buildings, you've got a lot of high rise, you get a lot of that tunneling, the wind and the control of the environment, and you don't want to create these blowtorch effects, like you say, if you're venting from the wrong side of the building and it starts to chase firefighters.
It's all about coordinating ventilation with suppression. We have to put water on a fire if we're venting. And it has to be somewhat closely timed. And if we're not doing that, then we should not be taking those windows and going in to those areas without the ability to isolate.
Someone had a question around evacuation and accountability, because it's even a podcast we had with someone else that runs a podcast in the States. I think they're from Miami. And they were saying how long it took a particular incident. And again, we're isolating it down to one incident here, so that doesn't make it typical of everything. We can't just extrapolate that out and make assumptions. But if the building becomes compromised, the building show it's failing, the compartmentation is failing, there's been a particular incident, we've lost contact with a certain firefighter, and there's an evacuation called. We use entry control boards in the UK. Now, there's frustrations for me around them and around. Here's a question first. Do you think we're more risk averse in the UK?
Or risk averse? I don't know if that's. I think your strategies and tactics revolve around your built environment. What buildings you have, and how many firefighters that you have responding, all of that. So I think I don't think I would say that you're risk averse. I don't think I.
It just seems to take us a lot longer to get in there and do anything, is my personal opinion. These are my words, not yours. And I have a frustration around that, and I have a frustration around a firefighter's ability to don their SCBA whenever they choose and take it off. We have these entry control boards. Don't know if you're familiar with it, and a lot of people have to sign in and out, and there's someone that sits in control of that. Taking me back to that question around evacuation, bringing everybody out of a building, roll calls. I'm assuming there's a process for that, because there's a sense of self-deployment all over the incident ground. Sometimes when I'm reading some of these debriefs, someone is speaking to American firefighters. So I want you to speak to what process sits behind that. I know you've spoken a lot around coordination already.
Yeah, so for us, the first 20 minutes is well choreographed. I know where all the firefighters are going to be. So they're not sitting there waiting for an order. So they're going in and getting after it right away.
See, ours do.
Which is what I want. I want my fire. I don't want you sitting outside waiting. I want you going inside, because I don't want you freelancing, right? So we have to know where you are, but I know where the entire first alarm assignment is supposed to be, because there's assignments for each of those. Where we wind up having a problem is when we have either a collapse, or we have fire extension into another area, or the fire starts producing victims, where we may have to start changing from what we had scripted. But otherwise, it's scripted. I know where everybody's going to be, because what I want to do is I want to accelerate the time that it takes for me to get in and put the fire out. So if my people are waiting for me to give them orders, when we could have standing orders, this is what you do, we're able to get them in there and get after it a lot faster. Now, when it's time to pull them out, if we're going to go to an exterior defensive attack, that always takes time, just because we don't want to just pull everybody out, because what if the hand line comes out first? That hand line is protecting the people that, right, our truck company doesn't have a hose line. So if we just say everybody out and there's no coordination, well, we might leave our truck members exposed. So the hand line should be in there a little bit longer than everybody else to make sure that everybody that doesn't have a hand line gets out. However, we have to make sure that when the order is given to evacuate the building, that we get the heck out, because the incident commander who's ordering that probably has a pretty good reason why and you may not know that reason. You may not see it from your small aperture of the fire ground. And sometimes that's a challenge, because nobody wants to be the first one out of the building. Everybody wants to be the last one out. And honestly, we'd rather not come out, because that's what firefighters are. That's what we do, right? We're type A personalities. We want to get the job done, and we play to win. And which is a good thing, right? That's what I want.
I worry we're creating the timid firefighter. That's my concern with this. over-reliance on procedures and this over-reliance on defensive firefighting approaches. If there's no savable life, not sending people in, and all this sort of stuff. And again, for some people in the UK, they might think I'm being a little bit extreme, but I don't want us to get anywhere near that. I want
thinking well-trained firefighters, and that means being able to read the document, know the procedures, and know when we operate outside the procedures because you see something differently. If I legislate every decision on the fire ground, I'm going to have a bunch of robots that have no idea how to make their own decision based on what they see. So gray area in our procedures is good because that enables you to read the fire, understand the fire, and make decisions based on your knowledge, hopefully your deep knowledge of firefighting.
So if we use that bit of autonomy and we stretch it out beyond the incident ground, talk to me a little bit around giving people autonomy, empowering leaders to make decisions, not passing everything up the line. Like, how do we give people the conviction to know that they can make decisions, they will be supported, and to do that and to make those decisions, knowing the difference between the incident ground and the station as well, because that solely command and control approach can actually do a lot of damage if you take it off the incident ground and that's your approach on day-to-day life every day on station.
But I think so. The more we can push down decision making to our lower levels, the better off we are. And like, there's decisions on the fire ground I expect my firefighters to be able to make without asking me. And because otherwise we just clog up the radio, and we haven't done a good job of training our people. If you're asking me to every time you could do anything, what do I have? No trust in you? We have to train our people where we have trust in them to be able to go out and do the job. Now, if they prove that they shouldn't be trusted, or we have areas that are so critical that they have to ask permission, or that's a different story. But the better trained our people are, the better they are to make these decisions, and the better our lower levels are able to make quality decisions on the fire ground, which is what we want, because that accelerates the whole incident from our standpoint. We're able to get on top of it faster because we didn't have a waste of time asking for every little decision.
Absolutely. I want to be respectful of the time. I know we're coming close to our time cap. You are still as busy now, if not busier, traveling all around the US, teaching all around the world. I know you're going to be spending some time, some lectures. A few of my friends are going to IFIW and a few others in the coming months. You're very busy now going out and teaching predominantly in leadership. What are some of the common requests that you got? What is your pulse check feeling on what are the leadership challenges that we're facing now? You're very busy. When you're interacting with clients, when you're leading these courses now, what are some of the common questions you're getting asked about leadership?
The biggest question I get is, how do we overcome poor leadership at the top of the organization? So when you're stuck behind somebody who's a poor leader, number one question, not even close. And it's harder, right? So but that shows you the leadership dilemma that we have.
What do you think? Because people won't have those aspirations to become a leader that's not believed in, that's not trusted in. What do you think we're missing that enables people to get through these processes into those positions? Because, like you say, the higher up you get in the organization, the more damage you can cause. Because the further your decisions, the influence of your decision will stretch. So how do you get over that managing up? Because we've all been there. I've certainly been there.
We don't give our people enough opportunities to attend leadership training. So a brand new firefighter should get leadership training.
Yeah, and you're taking them out for 6 to 8 weeks. I know we're zooming back down into FDNY now, but like we don't even do that. So that's my biggest concern. It's almost a hypocrisy to it. You go, well, why are we struggling with leadership? And we go, well, how much time do we give it? And we go, well, not very much. And we go, well, do we have the audacity to be surprised?
Yeah, and we are, right? So we forget, we only train you on half the job. When you get promoted to your first leadership position, we've only taught you how to be brilliant at the basics. It's like going to the gym and only doing arms and chest. And then you walk around like this on twigs. You have zero foundation. And the foundation is the soft skill leadership. It's all of those other parts that we forget about.
And the irony is, the higher up the organization you get, I always say for us, like station managers and above, your tools are no longer, you're not going to be picking up a hose line. You're not going to be, doing that every day. Your tools are going to be your words and the way you interact with people, the way you get them to believe in what you're saying. They're your tools now. They're your tools of day to day. And we haven't trained you to deal with them. We've made you an expert in the tactical.
Yeah. So now we hand you those tools and you don't know what to do with them. And it's a big problem, which is why I say leadership and management training needs to start with the newest members in Proby school. And it doesn't have to, I'm not teaching you how to be a chief, right, in Proby school, but that firefighter might become the senior firefighter. He might be the influential, informal leader in the firehouse. And how much better would that person be if we gave him some type of training on how to do that? And then when they get promoted, it's just a force multiplier their entire career. Stuff that they learned as they move up the ranks. By the time they become a chief officer, we're not concerned about leadership because this person has taken leadership as part of a lifelong learning process. Just like they'll be brilliant at the basics and brilliant at soft skill leadership. And that is the complete package that we often fail to see and achieve.
Frank, absolutely love that. I think we've nailed getting inside our time. We're going to put some links for people to be able to reach out to you. If they want to find out more about you, where is the best place to go?
Place is probably either LinkedIn, on Facebook. You could follow me either with my name, Frank Leeb, or Cornerstones of Leadership. And then first responder consultant at gmail.com is my email address. And I'm pretty easy to find.
We are going to provide email address. We're going to provide link to LinkedIn. I'm going to provide a link to a YouTube. So if people look underneath this, they'll see one of your talks there and Cornerstones of Leadership as well. We'll drop that email in there. Frank, thank you so much for your time today, brother. I really do appreciate it. Travel safe over there, my friend. And I look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate it.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.